Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into college visits. My guest today is Janice Caine. She is the owner of Custom College Visits, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here today.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests where you went to college. So where'd you go to school?
I am a very proud graduate of Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts, and stay very well connected with them. Um, it was uh, um, it was an interesting process deciding where. I came from a very small town and a very small high school. And I applied to a number of different schools, both big and small. And there was no question at all that I was going to college. My parents had both gone to college. Two of my grandparents went to college. So there was no question. I don't think I ever even thought twice about it. But where, that was another story. I knew I wanted to go away. Like so many kids, I want to get out. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere. I hadn't really thought about how far away when I was applying. So I applied to schools that were within driving distance, some that were within flying, within a flight or two. But it wasn't until my parents, I was lucky enough that they were the parents that would drive me around all over the place to take me to see the schools that were on my list and the places that I got accepted to. And I think, I actually had narrowed it down to one of the larger schools and to Smith. And I think what really sold me on it was, well, there were a couple of things. I think one was the visit that I made to Smith. I just came away feeling really, really good about it. Just feeling that I could see myself there. And I think that's part of what I tell the kids today too, is that can you see I ask them to ask themselves, can you see yourself there? I think that's really important. And I think after doing my interview there, taking the tour and chatting with the tour guide, I really felt that I could see myself there. And one of the other things was coming from a small school. I think at the time, the bigger school felt a little bit overwhelming for me. So that's how I made my decision. And I never looked back. And it's interesting because my daughter also ended up going to Smith, and she started out looking at a number of different schools. And she kept saying that she didn't want to go where I want. She wanted to do something different. And all I asked her to do was apply. That was it. I just asked her to apply and then left her alone. And she decided on her own to go. So, of course, I was always excited about that. And we share that bond together. So that's where I went and enjoyed the town. And today the town is thriving even more than it was then. So it's a great college town, and I really enjoyed it.
So, how many schools did you apply to, and how many schools did you visit?
I actually, it was rare, I think, in my day to apply to as many as I did. I applied to 11 schools,
Wow.
and we went to visit some of them that were within driving distance before I was accepted. And once I was accepted, I visited more. And I think, if I remember correctly, we visited most of the ones that I got accepted to. So
Wow.
I had a really good idea of what all of the schools had to offer and had my questions answered and made my decision from there. And so I felt like I had a really good picture of what each of them had to offer.
So now you're at Smith College. What's it like? What did you think of the school when you were going there?
I loved it. And I think part of the reason I loved it was the not just the academics, but I think it was the close knit community. It was very close knit. It's not a large school. There are about 2,700 students, um, and you can walk from one end of the campus to the other in about 15 minutes, which is something that I wanted. And more than anything, to this day, I really appreciate the friendships that I was able to make there. And I think, again, that's something that I urge students to think about too, is think about the fact that you're only in class for a certain amount of hours every day and per week, and you spend a lot of time outside of those, out of academics. So think about what you're looking for and what's important. And I cherish that to this day. We have mini reunions and things like that. And I always know, even if I haven't talked to these people in a while, that they're always there. And it's really, really special. And I think that was special while I was there. The classes for me were great. They were small. And so that was something else that I liked. I liked that student faculty ratio that was small, the class size being small, especially having come from a school. My high school wasn't more than, from not grade 9 to 12, my high school wasn't more than 500, 550 students total.
Wow.
So that's what I was used to. That's what I liked. And I really felt that I could flourish there. I was flourishing there. And I look back on it today and I think I encouraged my daughter a little bit more. There were so many things that I took advantage of, but so many that I didn't. And so while she was there, I encouraged her to even do more, because I think it goes so fast that you turn around and you say, oh, I wish I had done that. I wish I had done that. So as much as I had done, there was so much more there to offer. And I did a junior year abroad, and that was wonderful. I also uh, I did the equestrian program, which I never had any idea I was going to do something like that. And there's a first time for everything. So I was able to take advantage of so many things that I didn't necessarily know about before I got there. And I think that it was all within grasp, so to speak. And I think that it was, there was no qualms about it whatsoever.
So you graduate from college. How does one's path go from graduating college to owning a custom college visit company?
Well, there was a lot in between when I got out of college and when I started the company. The only thing I knew when I graduated was I wanted to do something in the travel industry. That was what I knew. I didn't have a specific career in mind. And so had I had quite a few jobs, and it allowed me to be exposed to all different parts of the industry. I worked in logistics, I worked in operations, I worked in planning, I worked in marketing. So I had all of that. I wasn't on the retail side of it. I was in the wholesale and incentive and meeting part of the industry. And so it was more of, how do you put the pieces together? How do you put the pieces together, whether they're big trips or small one-on-one visits to China or Japan, or putting together an incentive trip in a foreign country for a corporation that's over here, that for the winners that have, which is what an incentive group is. It's basically, if there's some sort of a business contest, it's people who achieve maybe above a certain amount of income, then they are given this special tour or special program. And so it was doing all those kinds of things. And what I realized was, amongst all these different pieces, one of the things well, there are a few things that I loved. I loved dealing with people in general, but I also was exposed to so many people from all over the world. And that was so incredible, such a wonderful experience, as well as traveling to many of these places. And no matter where I went afterward, there were a few years where I kind of branched out in the marketing side that wasn't necessarily dealing with the travel industry. Wherever I went, whatever I did, I was always thinking of, how can I get back into the travel industry? I loved doing that research and the logistics piece, but also dealing with people. And so when my daughter started going to colleges, looking at colleges, started thinking about colleges, it kind of started by chance. So she had sent for some information from Smith, as it turns out. That was the first one. And she got an email from a professor there in the theater department. And he said, well, we see that you're interested and this is what you're interested in. Well, why don't you come and visit with me? And so we went and we visited, and it was great. And so we thought, well, this is a great way of doing it. And then she went on a tour with her school, and it was, a week long. It was fairly expensive, and she came back a little bit frustrated because she couldn't see the schools that she wanted to, that were some of them that were on the list. She couldn't There were others that she didn't want to visit, that she had to visit. None of the visits were very long because you're off the bus, you see this, you see that, you get back on, you go to the next one. And so I thought back to that visit that we did at Smith, and I thought, this is a great way of doing it. We can put these together, customize them to what you want to see, like theater, or she thought maybe she might be interested in crew. So we could reach out to the crew coach. We could reach out. She also played soccer. We can reach out to a soccer coach. We can talk to study abroad people if you want to travel. So I started putting these together with her, and we reached out to people at the different schools, and I think we did 3 trips, and I think my husband did one with her also when we were back east. We were living in California at the time. And she just she just was delighted, and she was amazed at what she could learn. And it didn't necessarily mean that every school that she went to was one that she was interested in, but it also helped her learn what she didn't want. And it also, in certain places, she may have not wanted to go there, but there were things that she learned from the people she met with in the different departments. And she also had a chance to meet with students on campus. And, sometimes the people she was meeting with would get very excited and bring in a student for her to talk with, or another professor. So it was a wonderful experience. And so I was sitting with a friend of mine one day, and she was trying to plan a trip with her daughter. And she also had another child. She also had a full-time job. She's trying to pull all this together, wondering who's going to take each one where that afternoon. And she said, I wish I had someone who could do this for me. And I said to her, I went home and I said to my husband, I can do this. I have all this experience now doing this, but also within the travel industry. I've done the logistics planning. I've done the details. I've learned the hard way what not to forget and what to include. And I love dealing with people. I love dealing with the kids. I have always had an interest in academia, and I think I could do it. And at this point, also other people had started reaching out to me. Can you help me? Can you do this? Can you plan this? And I thought, we said, let's try it. And I did it part-time. I didn't jump in with both feet at that point because I still had other work I was doing. And then at one point, I finally said, let's just do it. And so in 2010, Custom College Visits was born. And again, I haven't looked back. I love what I do. I love what I do. It's very rewarding. And more than anything, it's so great to talk with the parents and have them feel that once they've had a conversation with me, the whole process doesn't seem so overwhelming anymore. And that as they're going through the visits, it's really exciting to have them tell me about their experiences, both theirs and the kids, and the bonding that goes on sometimes between them, because it's a time when you just spend that time with your son or daughter that you don't get otherwise. That's what you're there for. That's what you're doing. And so that's how it was born, basically.
So now, the college visits, do the parents come to you and say, I want to go to this school, this school, this school, and then you work it all out? How does it all work?
So usually we mainly deal with requests from parents. We do not deal, the students don't usually reach out to us. It's the parents. And yes, most of them do have a list that they come to us with. Some do not and want our help. And we'll help them build a list and then prioritize that according to whatever, however much time they have. So they would come to us with a list, and each trip is customized to each family and each individual student. So what we would do is we would find out the dates that they want to travel. Or right now we've pivoted so that we can do virtual visits right now during the pandemic. So but we still do it as if there were certain dates. Usually it's when the kids are on a break. So we find out the dates, we find out what the schools are that they want to visit. And then what we do is for a virtual visit, well, actually for both, I should say for both, we have a questionnaire that we send out to the students. And it's basically, it's not a there's a right or wrong kind of questionnaire. It's basically just asking them questions to help me get to know them a little better so that I know what they will want to see and do during their visits. So it asks them, what are your favorite subjects? What have you done during the summer? What community service have you done? Do you want to continue community service? And, oh, excuse me. Why? I also ask them, why do you want to go to college? And then we also ask them, are there specific majors that you're thinking about or interested in? Are there other subjects that you want to learn about that you may have not been able to you weren't exposed to when you were in high school, such as maybe philosophy? I have a lot of kids that are interested in philosophy. So that helps me learn about them. Then I talk to them for a little while, and we develop a criteria for what they'd like to see on campus. Do you want to do um, visits with professors? Do you want to do visits with students? Are you a flute player? Do you want to talk to somebody that's active in one of the bands or orchestras? Do you want to talk to somebody about photography? Do you want to do study abroad? So it's basically, we make a list of everything that student might be interested in doing on campus. And then what we do is we will plan on campus, because we reach out to people on campus. And it's not, we can't get everybody on every campus, but we do our best to try to fit those into the itinerary, one-on-one. Maybe sometimes they're two-on-one, but we look to have those specific meetings. And when we also put the route together, if they're traveling and they're going on campus, we put the logistics together, figuring out where do you go first, second, third, from point A to point B to point C, looking at the calendars of the schools, looking at their dates, looking at how long it takes to get from point A to point B. And we try not to have too many school visits in one day because we want them to spend time on each campus. And then if they're interested in having us coordinate their travel when they're doing an on-campus visit or on-campus itinerary, then we work with our travel partner. And they work with them one-on-one to help them make all of their arrangements. And I stay in the loop on that because I want to make sure that if I'm booking a visit for 4:15 in the afternoon, that we have enough time for them to get to the airport, to get to the next place, so that I'm not having them rush and try to make their flight. So it's all coordinated. And when they're ready to go or ready to their virtual visit, then they have an itinerary. It's an online through an app that tells them everything, detailed daily itinerary with everything they could ever want to know, who they're seeing, what time, how to get there, what time they should be there, everything that they could possibly know. And they can put their own notes into it. We can update them on anything that's happening. So it's an easy process for them. They just show up.
So are the parents driving to each one of the schools, and then you're just setting up the meetings at the school?
Correct. We do not accompany them.
Okay, and then are you setting up their hotels as well if the schools are far away?
It can be. If they want us to, then our travel partner does their hotels, any kind of land arrangements, air arrangements, hotels, whatever they need. We give them some sightseeing suggestions. And they would work with her separately. If they wanted more than that, they could do that. But anything that they need in terms of making it so that they have an easy time of the planning process and being on site. That's what we coordinate for them, so that it's not overwhelming, and it's a fun process. It becomes a fun process for them.
So you've been doing it for 10, 11 years. Do you have a lot of connections at schools all around the country where you can set up these meetings with these people?
It's interesting because each one is customized to a different, to what the needs are for each student. We don't necessarily have, strong connections with, because we're dealing with so many different types of professors and departments and things, except that there are certain departments. So for instance, there was one summer, I think I had, or one spring, I think I had 4 or 5 boys that all were interested in engineering. And then the next summer, or spring, or maybe during the summer, I had more. And so I got to know the people in the engineering department and the professors really well. So there are some, where you see that repetition where kids are interested. And so we go back to some of the same professors, but then there are some that are totally new to me because they're, as I said, maybe it's a philosophy major, and we've had a couple of them. So it really depends on what department we're dealing with as to how strong those connections are, but it's always nice to make a new one.
Sure.
So and for instance, also there are a couple of schools where I've had kids that are interested in music and learning about the different opportunities in mostly instrumental. And so I have gotten to know at one school the person in charge of dealing with those visits very, very well. So it just depends on how often you get that same interest as to who you develop the stronger relationship with. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
So now, how do students and parents find you? Is it just word of mouth or?
It started out as mostly word of mouth and referral, and it still is a lot of that. I'm now at that point where I have a lot of repeat clients because they're on their second or third student. I've had several of them now that I've done all three. So it's great. It's really kind of fun, and it's interesting too to see the difference between the students. How different they are, and how different their needs are, and how differently they work and think. So that's a lot of it. There was at the beginning a lot of, as I say, referral business. A lot of what we have, a lot of people that come to us by our website. People sometimes we try to find out how they got to us, but it's very funny because I'll say to some of them, well, how did you find us? And they say, well, I did some searching. I don't remember what I searched. It was some sort of college tours. Some of them search on specialized tours, Ivy League tours, or um, you know, customized tours, things like that. So it just totally depends. And we're getting more of that. We're getting more of that, especially from overseas. We get a fair amount that have searched on the website.
Yeah, so that was my next question. I'm assuming you get a lot of international students.
We do. We get a fair amount, mostly during the summer. Mostly during the summer. That's where most of our international students are, unless it's somewhere from like the UK, where they have the 2 breaks, one in October and then one again in the spring, and so they have a little bit more flexibility. But yes, we do. We've worked with people from all over the country and overseas as well. All over most of Southeast Asia, a lot of Europe, some countries in Africa as well. So it's been fun. It's really fun.
Now, do you find a particular geographic in the United States that a lot of kids tend to go to? Northeast, the South, the Midwest, West Coast?
Um, what I yes, for the most part, what I've seen, it's changing a little bit. But yes, the Northeast, New England, and the Mid Atlantic and that area tends to be the strongest.
Is that because that's where the majority of schools are, or?
I think so. I think so. And at the beginning, it was interesting because we were based we were living in California, and a lot of it was word of mouth, and I don't know, maybe our search was different, but I did notice that a lot of the people in the both the Northern California and Southern California were wanting to go, back east. Um, so it was interesting.
And is it expensive for families, or is it based off of how many schools they actually go see?
It is based off, we have a package, and that is actually, it's based off, it goes basically, it's up to a certain, we do it up to 8 schools. And so there's a package price that's up to 8 schools. And if they want to do additional, then there's a minimal charge for each additional school. Some people, if they just want to do one, we'll do one, and we'll charge them just for one. But for the most part, people, most people tend to travel for about a week, 10 days.
Yeah.
And if they're doing 8 schools, I think that's plenty. You don't want a student to get overloaded either, to the point where they don't remember what they've seen. So
Well, good. So it's coming to the end of our show. And usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that want to take a college tour? What advice do you want to give them?
so I think the biggest thing that I tell people is start early. So I think a lot of people wait until the spring of their junior year to start thinking about this, or to start doing visits. And there's so much going on their junior years. It's the hardest year they go through. There's so many other things that if you can get a jump on that, it becomes a little bit less overwhelming to everybody. So we tell them to start early. And that doesn't mean, you can start in 9th or 10th grade. And that doesn't mean, oh, you need to know what colleges you want to go to or what majors you want. But it's more talking about the idea of college and what does that mean. And in terms of visiting colleges, it could be just, if you're traveling on vacation, maybe walking around through a college campus. Or my son, for instance, he did a camp or a couple of camps at colleges, and that gives them a feel for what a college feels like. What does it mean to be living in a dorm? There are college students around. What is it like to talk to these college students? Or there's a program called Splash, done by Learning Unlimited, and they have programs around the country. And they're 2-day programs over weekends, where students in grades 8 through 12 can pay a minimal amount, be on campus for 2 days, and all the programs that are done, all the learning that's done, is taught by grad students and undergrad students and teachers. And they can mingle with all these people. They get to take classes, and the classes are on anything from the history of chocolate to the physics of baseball, to anything like that. And so they're on campus, and it's really exciting. They're in a classroom, or now they are doing them online while they can't do them on, out on the campuses. But so they're available. They're just a little bit different, but they're still interacting with college students. And so it's a great way for them to be exposed to the idea of college and what that means.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.